By Sunday night, assuming the tracking holds, Hollywood is going to declare superhero fatigue is officially dead. Well, that is unless you're Variety, because Variety says superhero fatigue is real, Spider-Man fatigue is not. But I digress. Marvel is back. The MCU is saved. Kevin Feige apparently solved everything by releasing a movie starring the most popular superhero on Earth. That is a fascinating diagnosis. Fascinating. It's also nonsense. Because Spider-Man Brand New Day is already giving us a receipt before most American audiences can even buy popcorn. The live estimate being circulated for its first full day in China is roughly 250 million won. For you in the back, that's about $35 to $37 million, depending on the conversion and when the tracker closed. That number is still preliminary, so I'm not engraving it on the tombstone yet. But if it holds, it would put Brand New Day right around or slightly above the Chinese opening day of Spider-Man Far From Home in 2019. And by the end of this video, I'm giving you my own worldwide opening prediction, my actual number, and explaining why the record-breaking weekend everyone is about to celebrate proves something completely different from what Hollywood thinks it proves. Welcome back to The Critical Nerd. Thank you to everyone returning to the channel, and welcome to everyone joining us for the first time. Spider-Man Brand New Day opens wide today, July 31st. It is Tom Holland's fourth solo outing, Sony and Marvel's biggest theatrical swing of the summer, and a movie arriving with the kind of demand most franchises would sacrifice 3 streaming services and a cinematic universe to manufacture. It's also arriving while Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey continues occupying the domestic IMAX footprint. Brand New Day has IMAX play in markets including China, Japan, and South Korea, but not the same domestic premium format advantage Spider-Man would normally expect. And yet, it's still tracking like an event. So when this movie opens huge, and it's going to open huge, folks, every outlet in the business is going to run some version of the same headline. Marvel is back. I'm going to show you why that headline is wrong using the movie's own numbers. Here is the framework that I'm using, the household name test. 3 questions. A character has to pass all 3 before I'm willing to use that character's box office as proof and demand for an entire genre. Question 1. Can a random person on the street name this character without being told the movie exists? Question 2. Does the character have earned emotional history with audiences that exists outside of the current connected universe branding? And question 3, would the movie still open big if you deleted the words Marvel Cinematic Universe from the poster entirely? Spider-Man passes all 3 without breaking a sweat. A lot of the superhero projects that have struggled over the last several years do not. Keep that test in your head because we're going to run this entire weekend through it. Let's start with the tracking because the numbers are genuinely all over the place. Sony's own expectation has reportedly been around $100 to $195 million domestic. That is the studio distributing the movie giving us the cautious number. Box Office Pro's long-range forecast landed considerably higher at $230 to $250 million domestic. Other independent projections have pushed the number above $250 million, while the most caffeinated corners of the internet have started whispering about $300 million domestic, as though Avengers Endgame records are participation trophies. Then we have the worldwide number. One of the more widely circulated global projections is approximately $465 million for the opening weekend. I think that was over a deadline. And on the opposite end of the credibility spectrum, an $800 million worldwide opening fantasy briefly started bouncing around social media. Let me say again, $800 million in one weekend. Apparently, Spider-Man is no longer swinging through Manhattan. He is personally refinancing the national debt. Now, I'm not using that $800 million number. I'm not even putting it in the same zip code as a serious prediction. But the spread between Sony's conservative domestic expectation and the outside forecast tells us something important. The industry knows demand is enormous, but it does not show where the ceiling is. And the reason the ceiling is so difficult to model is that Spider-Man is not an ordinary Marvel character. Spider-Man Brand New Day is not a clean test of whether the MCU is healthy. Spider-Man No Way Home finished with roughly $1.9 billion worldwide and posted a finalized global opening of approximately $600.9 million. During a market still dealing with pandemic disruption and without a China release. Brand New Day's first trailer then generated approximately 718.6 million views in its first 24 hours. Sony later said it crossed 1 billion views in 4 days. Peter Parker did not walk into this weekend needing Marvel Studios to introduce him to the public. He walked in with generations of comic books, cartoons, toys, video games, multiple film franchises, and one of the biggest theatrical hits of the modern era behind him. That is the first crack in the Marvel is back headline. This is not generic Marvel demand. This is Spider-Man demand. There have never been the same number, and this weekend is about to demonstrate the difference with approximately $500 million worth of subtlety. Now look at what the early reactions are actually praising. They're not celebrating a larger multiverse, 12 surprise cameos, or the successful completion of another Phase 7 homework assignment. The repeated praise is for a grounded Spider-Man story, a more mature Peter Parker, character-driven conflict, and a movie that cuts back on multiverse tedium. That is the interesting receipt. The praise is not for what Marvel added. The praise is for what the movie removed. I should say Marvel even removed. Less connective tissue, less franchise bookkeeping, less time spent making Peter Parker serve as a delivery mechanism for the next 6 release dates. The movie appears to be working because Peter Parker is once again the product. That should not qualify as a revolutionary filmmaking strategy. It is a Spider-Man movie. Spider-Man should probably be important in it. But after years of cinematic universe expansion, making a superhero movie primarily about the superhero now feels like somebody found a lost chapter of Aristotle. Now run the household name test again. Can a random person name Spider-Man? Yeah. Does he have emotional history outside of the current MCU? Obviously. Would this movie open big without the MCU label on the poster? Sony has spent more than 20 years answering that question. Now compare that with movies built around secondary characters and newer team configurations. This is not me saying the characters are bad. It's not me saying those movies deserve to fail. It is me saying Hollywood repeatedly packages properties with very different levels of public demand as though the cinematic universe logo makes them financially interchangeable. Well, they're not interchangeable. Spider-Man does not need the audience to understand the corporate roadmap before they care about him. For many secondary properties, the studio has to create that urgency. It has to explain why this character matters, why the story is an event, and why the theater experience is worth the money. Stamping from the studio that brought you the Avengers on the trailer is not the same thing as doing that work. That is why I do not call this superhero fatigue. I call it franchise selectivity. Audiences are still willing to show up for superheroes. They're just no longer willing to pretend every superhero arrives with Spider-Man level demand. Those are two completely different diagnoses, and Hollywood is about to choose the easier one because the correct diagnosis is more expensive to fix. And before anyone accuses me of rooting for this movie to flop, I'm not. I want Brand New Day to be good. I want it to hit enormous numbers. I want movie theaters to have another event. I want Peter Parker to receive a story that remembers why audiences care about him. My argument is not that the movie will not be huge. My argument is that huge and proof the entire genre is fixed are two different sentences. By Sunday night, the industry is going to collapse them into one because that headline is easier to sell than the real one. Now let's close the loop from the beginning. China opened Brand New Day on Wednesday, July 29th, 2 days before the North America wide release. And before opening, Chinese platforms were already reporting more than 100 million won in previews and advanced ticket sales. At the time of this recording on Friday morning, the live full day estimate is being circulated at approximately 250 million won, roughly 35 to 37 million dollars. For context, Venom: The Last Dance opened to 67.3 million won in China in 2024. Spider-Man: Far From Home opened to approximately 247 million won in 2019. So if the current brand new day estimate holds, it would be nearly 4 times Venom's opening day and would slightly edge Far From Home, making it the strongest Marvel opening day in China since at least 2019. Now, there is an important caveat to that. Brand New Day has a 2-week IMAX window in China, while the domestic IMAX slate remains committed to the Odyssey, so China is not a perfectly clean preview of what will happen in North America. But the receipt is real. And it supports the idea that a $465 million worldwide projection may be a little conservative. So here's my number, not Sony's cautious domestic floor, or not the internet's $800 million fever dream. My prediction that Spider-Man Brand New Day opens worldwide at approximately, I'm going to say it, 500 million worldwide. Yeah, I'm going there, 500 million. And comfortably below No Way Home's finalized $600.9 million global opening. So you could write it down or you could snip this, whatever you want to do. 500 million worldwide by Sunday night. And Monday, when the actual numbers are locked, I'll come back and grade that prediction, including my own, because accountability should not disappear just because Spider-Man can climb walls. There's one more distinction in the Marvel is Back that the Marvel is Back headline is going to blur. Sony distributes Spider-Man Brand New Day and controls the Spider-Man film franchise. Marvel Studios collaborates creatively, and Kevin Feige is one of the film's producers alongside Amy Pascal and the Sony side production team. That partnership, it matters. Marvel absolutely deserves credit for its role if the movie works. But it also means that this is not the same business test as a Disney-distributed, wholly internal Marvel Studios release. The box office belongs to Spider-Man first. It benefits Sony directly. It gives Marvel reputational momentum. What it does not do is magically transfer Spider-Man's demand to every other character with a red logo above the title. Borrowing Spider-Man's receipts and handing them to the rest of the slate is not analysis. It's corporate identity theft. So run the household test one final time. Spider-Man is recognizable without context. He has decades of emotional history outside of the connected universe, and his box office poll does not depend on the MCU label to function. That is why the tracking range is so wide. That is why China is already posting event-level numbers, and that is why my worldwide prediction is $500 million. If the movie hits that number, or goes even higher, it will be a tremendous win for Tom Holland, Sony, Marvel Studios, theaters, and audiences. What it will not prove is that Marvel fixed every problem. It will prove Hollywood keeps confusing one exceptional character with an entire strategy. Spider-Man's box office will not prove Marvel is back. It will prove Spider-Man never left. Now I want to hear from you guys out there. Does Brand New Day finish below the $465 million projection or land somewhere in the neighborhood of my $500 million prediction? Or just blow totally past $500 million and make this video age like milk sitting on the roof of a Tampa parking garage in July? And if it opens huge, does that prove Marvel is back? Or does it only prove Spider-Man remains the exception? Let me know down in the comments, because Monday, once the real numbers are locked, and I'm coming back to grade the studio guidance, the outside projections, the China estimate, and my own prediction against what actually happened. If I'm wrong, you'll hear it from me here first. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Don't forget to share this video out there with your friends and family. My name is Chris. I'm the Critical Nerd. Keep your expectations low and your receipts high, and I will see you later.